welcome back to another Black Girl Mental highlight. Today, on this beautiful fall Thursday afternoon, we have none only than the great Rachel J. Rachel J is a licensed mental health therapist, a doula, a speaker, a wellness coach, a professor. She wears so many hats. Rachel J, how are you doing today?
I'm blessed. I'm grateful to be here and I'm just excited to do the work that I do and wake up every day and I'm excited to connect with other badass Black women. So
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. So, first things first, right? Let's start at the beginning. How did you get to where you are?
Ooh, what a like that's a long question. But I mean, my journey is an interesting one. I mean, we could probably even go back to the dawn of the beginning of dawn, but I really started this journey when very cliche when I was like in high school trying to figure out what I wanted to do. The only thing that I knew, it was so cliche, is that I wanted to help people. And I remember like filling out my college application and like writing that in my like uh essay like this is so cliche, but I just want to help people. But I didn't know yet in what way, in what frame, and like how that would look. And I remember going to like my college orientation and sitting in some of the orientations where, you know, places they would present what they do and talking about kind of the impact that they make. And I remember just saying, like, that's it, that's what I want to do. And so I started my career in social work and child and family studies at Syracuse University. And I knew that I wanted to do at that time work with kids, with families, but then my passion really started to develop more into wanting to work with underserved and underrepresented communities, historically marginalized communities. And then I even honed that in and said, you know, I really want to work with Black folks in the Black community. And so I did what I call a 6-year bid. I went straight into my master's program at Syracuse University, and I did a dual degree in marriage and family therapy and social work.
Wow.
I always wanted options. That
Yeah.
was a big thing for me. I knew that I wanted to be a damn good therapist. I knew I wanted to do clinical work, but I knew I didn't want to just be a therapist. And so for me, I needed to do both, right? Like social work kind of afforded me not only flexibility, but it also that's where my advocacy roots come from. That's where my systems roots come from. Like there's a persona in me that's very much a social worker. But then there's like I'm a damn good therapist too. And there's lots of things that came from understanding relationships and dynamics and families. And so I do this ambitious dual degree program, master's program, while working full time, and I had to do 2 internships. So I was
Wow.
which is becomes the right like my life is just that becomes the narrative of my life is like always doing something. But I try really hard not to do things that don't align with me, that don't fuel me, that don't bring my passions forward.
Mhm.
While I was in that program, I really enjoyed the work that I did. I did like a certificate in advanced study in trauma informed care. At that time, I thought I really wanted to focus in on trauma, and so you know, got certified in TFCBT, and I worked in substance use, and then I worked at our child advocacy center. I worked with survivors of sexual and domestic violence. So I really was really passionate about being a trauma therapist. Um, and then at some point in time, I really started to develop or understand that I was not serving Black and brown folks, right? And so I could count on my hand how many I mean, I was in 2 programs. Had all these great experiences. I could count on my hands how many families that I served that were of color. And that just did not sit right with me. So I started to ask myself questions like why and where are the people that I want to serve? And that kind of propelled me into practicing non-traditionally. At that time, I had become a doula and I opened my mind up to this holistic wellness world. And I started my capstone project was actually doing a women's empowerment group at our local community center. And that is where the birth of like non-traditional community-based work came from me. I knew where I wanted to be, and that was in the community. I wanted to be with my community. I wanted to be serving the community, the Black and Brown folks, the people that didn't see themselves in a pathway of therapy, the people that couldn't see themselves in services. That's who I wanted to tap into, and that's where I wanted to be. And so I graduated and I didn't practice as a therapist. I started doing maternal health work, and then I moved into some public health work. And um, I started to learn health disparities abroad, right? And then I started to say, Black people are not just not represented in mental health, but they're not represented in maternal health care. They're not represented in sexual health education. They're not represented in public health. And now what we're talking about is health equity across the board. So I
Mm.
stepped kind of out of this framework of a mental health therapist and I stepped into this framework of health equity, which then led me to this path of how do we create accessible and culturally relevant services that are holistic, that are relevant, that people see themselves in this service. And that's kind of how Half Hood, Half Holistic was born, was from this community-based, nonprofit, grassroots understanding that Black folks are not getting services around health and wellness at all. And it's because they don't feel seen, they don't feel represented, and they don't feel safe in the services that currently exist. So we created our own.
Oh my goodness gracious. You are speaking my language. Every single thing that you said, it was beautiful. I almost started crying. Really, because truly, right? You've taken, I think, really all that we learn, right, going into these very white supremacist
Mhm.
lenses of helping people and who is deserving of that help and what it takes to become deserving and really being able to take that and say, you know what? Actually, like, there's another way to look at this, and this is a way that's been around, like, way longer than so many of these, like, white supremacist informed systems, these white supremacy upholding systems, were founded. And just the ability to really, like, yeah, to take what you've learned and not, necessarily take it out of the throw it out the window, right? But to really combine both of those things to fill such a great need. So yeah, yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. Wow, wow, wow. And so, going back to accessibility, right?
Yeah.
Going back to health equity, thinking about your workbook, right? You came up with an incredible workbook. Tell us a little bit about that and the push, the motivation behind trying to, put all these great coping skills and stuff into this accessible, culturally relevant workbook.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Sometimes it's so weird because I it feels so surreal, and I often forget about the workbook until people kind of bring it forward. So I'm the author of the Self-Love Workbook for Black women. It's available anywhere books are sold, including Target, Walmart, and Amazon. And one of this was actually an act of alignment. And so I have lots of testimonies in my life where um, God has made things possible and open doors that I couldn't conceptualize. I never could conceptualize being an author. I couldn't conceptualize being a professor. I couldn't conceptualize being a consultant. There are certain things that I couldn't conceptualize or felt like I needed to be at a certain place in my life or in my career to obtain those things. Um, but God said to me and continues to say, as long as you're doing the work and that you're aligned and studying the work, I will open doors. And so one of those doors was the workbook. And so really the workbook was actually presented to me. And through this process, they were looking for the publisher at the time was looking for what they would call subject matter experts to complete this project. And I thought it was spam. Like I didn't even acknowledge it at first. And then I was like, well, let me see, like, and I go through the process and we had to write like writing samples and it was compared against other authors. And at no point in time did I feel like this would be what I was going to move forward with. And they were like, we love your tone. We love the way that you write and we want to move forward with you. And so I got thrown into being an author very unexpectedly and had to kind of put this book together in 3 months. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity because it was something that I couldn't conceptualize at that time. But from the larger vision of Half Foot, Half Holistic, we have always and continue to have a goal to create different pathways to healing. That's our goal, is like different entry points to healing. And so one of those things being things like workbooks and affirmation cards and social media, and the ways in which if you can't get into 4 therapy walls, that doesn't mean that your healing journey cannot begin or start, right? And so this workbook really was a symptom of passion and, to your point, accessibility, because you may not be able to engage in a therapeutic process as like therapy, but that doesn't mean you can't engage in a therapeutic process in any other way. Self-help is a major contributor to even reducing stigma, to getting people to mental health services. And so thus this like baby was born, the Self-Love Workbook for Black women. And it really was pulled from not only my own experiences, but when I wrote the book, I wrote it based on every Black woman that I have supported, that I've come in contact with. Some of the vignettes in the workbook are direct in vignettes from women that I have served from. The names are women that either have inspired and mentored me, or I use all the names of my nieces in my life to embed into this book, because when I think of self-love, when I think of Black women, I think about this community. It was very much an extension of my own experience and the collective experiences of Black women in my circle and that I support. And so it's equipped with kind of some landscape. The first half of the book kind of says like, why Black women, why self-love, like what is the historical and contextual factors that means we need to have a workbook around self-love for Black women. And then the second half of the workbook is some self-guided prompts and activities, journal prompts and affirmations, for someone that might be starting their self-love journey or revisiting it or continuing it. It really has things in there for everyone. So that's the workbook, and that's kind of the driving force behind it.
Wow. Okay. All righty. Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome. That is so exciting. I added it to my Christmas list, so let's see who comes through and gets that for me off of my Christmas list, because yeah, even and yeah, please y'all, like, go on Amazon if it's the most accessible thing, or Target, or anywhere books are sold. But I love the design. Like, I love the design. I love the cover. I love the pages. Like, really truly, you could like see the tender loving care that was put into even like the non-word stuff, even the stuff that's not the actual text.
Yeah. And when you get it, it's gonna feel so soft. I love it. It's like to hold the physical book is great. So it's also like, I guess people have found it like you could pick it up in Target. So it's in stores as well.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's exciting. Say no more. Say no more. I'm really excited to finally have that thing in my hands. That's exciting. Okay. Wow, wow, wow. Oh man, yeah, I'm really excited. Just thinking about like how crucial self-love is, because so many symptoms of mental illness look really different for Black women, right? So many symptoms of anxiety, of depression, right? It can look like rage, it can look like anger, it can look like high achievement, right? Like, we as Black women are really truly masters of disguise. Um, and of course, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't share that my grandmother passed away recently. And so I'm kind of like actively in a mourning phase with her. Thank you, thank you. And so really, right, just like being able to really like honor her legacy, really by honoring me, really by honoring myself, because I am a part of that legacy, right? And so really it's like when I think about what self-love looks like for Black women, I think about that, right? I think about just really zooming out and looking at this through a lens of not just ancestral healing, but also collective healing, right? Like that because I am because we are. I think it's the concept of Ubuntu. Um, and I think about that. So yeah, thank you for just sharing a little bit about this incredible opportunity, this book, how it fell on your lap, how you thought it was a scam, and it ended up being such a cool thing.
Oh, because they be scamming, so
Yeah. Yep. I was just talking to someone recently. The internet can be weird. It can be weird, but yes. So let me close our time together with our final question, which is, what would you tell someone? What would you tell someone who is a young Black girl, or maybe she's not that young. Maybe she's a college student. Maybe she also, she knew that she wanted to help people, but she didn't know what that was or what that could look like. What would you tell someone who would look at you and say, you know what, mom, that is what I want to be?
Mm. that that you don't have to work to be anything. Like, I think one of the things that sticks out to me is the sheer audacity that I had the entire time, the audacity to do multiple degrees, the audacity to show up in professional spaces with my hoop earrings and making people say half hood, half holistic, the audacity to name a business half hood, half holistic, the audacity to center Black folks in my practice, the audacity to show up as a Black woman, to write a book about Black women. Yeah, I think it takes a little bit of audacity, but the audacity is just really to show up as who I am in all parts of me. And the half hood piece and the half holistic piece is the audacity to just show up, and that's enough, that is enough, and that really it is the audacity is often what I reflect on and in my path. And so for me, it's like, to my younger self and to other Black girls, not only are you enough as you are, that it takes audacity to show up as you are.
Mm, wow, wow, amazing, incredible words that are just echoing. What an incredible way to end this segment, right? The importance of being, overdoing, right? And knowing that you already are enough. So
Mhm.
thank you, Rachel J. Thank you so much for your time. And before we leave, I have a couple different things to plug. So Rachel J has some monthly tribe check-ins. They're on the first Sunday of the month and they are free. So if you want to hang out with other Black women, you want to talk about your goals, you want to get into it, right? You want to be around other like-minded folks that are also interested in pursuing their own health and wellness amongst people that look like them and understand their experiences. Those monthly tribe check-ins are available and free. And then we have Self-Love Sundays. They are on the third Sunday of every month, and they're based on her workbook, right? And so these are $15 per session. You can find more about all of this stuff in the description box. I'm going to put all of Rachel J's information, website, Instagram, all that good stuff. And you can totally, right after you finish watching this, click on that, get into it, get involved, get connected. So thank you all so much and have a great rest of your Tuesday. It's Thursday. Have a great rest of your Thursday.
Great day.
Have a great day. There you go. Bye bye, everybody.